Hello everyone, this Capstone project is Hack a Home. This is done by myself, Carlin Davis, and Scott Dollar. The point of Hack a Home is to be able to root some of our home devices in order to kind of show the security implications as well as the creative freedoms that you can have that come along with rooting your devices. Some of the things that you can have with these different roots is if you will root a Amazon Fire Stick, an iPod, iPhone. You can root an Android phone to do different operating systems. You can also just get root privileges, which allow you to just have more freedom with the device itself. So there are four main types of roots that we're gonna go over. There is a tethered, semi-untethered, semi-tethered, and untethered. And the tethered one is generally not really used by the public. It's more used for like development of the exploits itself, which requires a computer in order to use it regardless. Like the entire time you want to be using that exploit, it has to be hooked up to a computer. Semi-tethered, on the other hand, you need a computer to run it every single time you try to boot up the device. Then you go into semi-untethered, which will put an application that's on your phone that you need to run every time your device restarts. At least you won't have to have it use a computer this time. You also have, since it adds an app, especially for iOS, that you're going to have to re-sign it through the development process, as it is a like development tool, and you have to do that every 7 days. Untethered is an exploit that is going to persist on your device even after reboot. If it crashes or restarts for any reason, it's going to stay on there. You do not have to redo the exploit. It's like the holy grail or the magnum opus of just like roots in general. And what is a jailbreak and what does it do? A root is basically a modification to the operating system, or it is something that will modify the security system in a way that allows you to either gain access to different features or be able to add other features that are not originally supposed to be on that system. Typically, it will add a device that you have to, or add an application to the device that you have to use, which in the case would be iOS. It also does that in Android if you are adding it through like an emulator or something of that sort. And when you're on an Android doing a root, it will give root access to the operating system, or it will add an emulator that can add another operating system onto it, like Kali Linux, for example, which we will go over later in this video. On iOS, you're going to be exploiting a security flaw to add a type of software that's going to make it like less locked down and give you more access to stuff that you would not be able to typically do, i.e. more customization or different applications that, for an old example, would be free in-game purchases. The security warning for this is going to be that jailbreaking or rooting, it was never intended by the developers of these devices. So the different things that you're going to have to go through to do it is going to void the warranty, which kind of goes into the next point of that it was legalized in 2010, but in doing so, you will void the warranty on any device that you have. Any changes to the operating system for the device's security, or like any file system changes that are going to be made, it can move from one device to another, especially if you have a new iPhone and you want to restore that iPhone to an old backup that you had on your previous phone, just on the newer one. All those files are going to transfer over, and it's still going to think that your device is jailbroken, even though it's not, because those security changes were made on the old device and that transferred over. So you're going to want to do so at your own risk. It can be kind of 50-50 on whether that's going to really impact the use of the device or not. The additional risks that are going to come along with this is when you root an iOS device, an application called Cydia is going to be installed, and this is essentially like another app store which adds other like repos or different applications that didn't pass through the like the authentication of the actual iOS app store and didn't get their approval. So any of those devices are going to go straight over to Cydia, and these can typically contain malware, so you really need to be careful with what you actually are going to be downloading, and make sure that you look into what it is that you're downloading. So for the iOS root instructions, this is what you're going to need. I have a iTunes linked on here. I also have the program that I use to run this exploit. I'll have those both linked in the description, as well as a tutorial video that's going to be posted up on here as well. So you're going to need to download versions 11.1.5 And when you're doing so, if you have a new version of iTunes, you're going to need to delete a actual file that's on there in order to generate a new one from the older one. You're also going to need to download and run the Boys-Expone, which is the exploit application that implements the jailbreak to your iPod or iPhone. And when you click the jailbreak, it pretty much does everything for you. It's going to restart a couple of times. You just need to let it run. Don't touch it much. And when it is done, you'll be good to go. You just need to open up Cydia and run that initial file setup, and your device is going to be jailbroken. This is one of the older ones, so as a disclaimer, it will change from iOS version to iOS version as well as device to device, depending on which one you're running at what time. These are a bunch of the additional tools that you could have used. These are ones that were released over the years, as well as the people that they were developed by from 2007 up until 2022. As a note, Ian Beer, very big, prominent white hat hacker that is in here. He also has contributed a lot to cybersecurity as a whole. And most notable one that he's done is the different jailbreaks that he's released since 2018, as well as Penguin Team, who's released quite a few since from 2014 to 2016. Those were like the two main developers for basically 4 years, so they're a very prominent part of the jailbreaking community. Next is Scott's part. These are going to be the steps. Again, I'm going to have his tutorials linked up in this video as well. And that's the presentation. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys learned something new.